Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. If I had the facility to collect and store rainwater, this is what I would get. I put these 3 clean glass containers out in the rain today, and we've had a bit. I'm using that container for what I want to do next, simply because my meters will stand in it. So this is my collected rainwater, and I need that deep enough for the pH meter to stand in without going over the water line. That looks about right. I can always add some. Right, first thing is, what's the TDS? I'd expect it to be rather low. 27. So not pure, but in a way that's sort of lucky, because if that had said 0, we'd have had a hell of a job getting the pH meter to work. pH meters are not very good at measuring the pH of totally pure water, because they've got nothing to get hold of. So my rainwater would have a TDS of 27, should I collect it. And then this will have to stand in there for a while, I suspect. It'll probably have readings all over the place. This meter always seems to read high and then drops down and settles. Well, what would you expect rainwater to be? Because I'd expect it to be somewhere between 6.8 and 7, as in almost pure water. Now, what's the point of all this? The point of all this is that somebody told me that they use their feed at a pH of 5.5 because all the humidity that the plants are absorbing through their leaves would come off of the jungle floor and, you know, forest floor and stuff like that, and would naturally have a very low pH. Totally disagree. First of all, humidity, it doesn't hold nutrients, it's a gas. So that threw that straight out of the window. And I actually did a little video asking the question, and some people got the wrong end of the stick about the question. I had no intention of foliar feeding my orchids. I just wanted to know if people thought humidity held nutrients. And you have to bear in mind, if you stop and think about it, where does the rain come from? It's evaporated water, mainly off the oceans. The oceans are full of salt, the rainwater's not. So when water evaporates, yeah, the molecules are far too far apart to be a liquid, they're a gas. How does humidity become liquid? It reaches the saturation point of 100%, where it returns back to liquid form. Yeah? So, well, what I am surprised is the pH of this is still dropping. Certainly having trouble saying. It looks like it might settle at around 6.5. I'm surprised it's that low. But you have to bear in mind, we don't know what's in it. And there is something in it. Yeah, there was a TDS reading there of heading up towards 30, which I'm very surprised at for rainwater. But then we haven't had any rain for a long time, and rain has the capability of taking on board particles in the air. You call it dust if you want, but our air is not clean. You know, it hasn't been for a long time. Still going down actually, 6.4 now. As I say, I'm surprised. And I'm also very pleased that I use RO water, which definitely has a pH of 6.8, 6.9, and there's no arguing with that because I've tried it and tested it. But I'm surprised that the pH is that low. Very surprised. It implies to me that whatever is in this rainwater is still dropping. Whatever's in it, whatever that TDS reading is actually quite strong. Yeah? If I add my fertiliser to RO water and push it up to 100 parts per million, the pH goes down to about 6.6 from 6.8, 6.9. Yeah? So whatever is in this rainwater is relatively strong. But, and I have no way of telling what it is. I don't even want to know because I don't use rainwater. But I just thought I'd go over that. You know, it's rainwater, you would have to say, has got something in it. It's not pure. And in certain areas, certainly industrial areas or highly populated areas, it's probably got more in it because the air would be dirty that it passes through. So yeah, that's a surprising reading. Of course, I've got no guarantee that that's a correct reading because my pH meter's never been near water like that before. But yeah, it seems to be settling around 6.3. Quite honestly, that is still dropping. Give it another wiggle, see how much it drops then. Yeah, I think it's going to hover around 6.3. Oh, I'm surprised. Yeah, but yeah, just basically going back to you've got foliar feeding is a subject that's debatable for orchids. I believe it is a useful thing to do, but it's not efficient on the grounds that studies have shown that orchids, as a general rule, have got a much lower stomata count compared with other plants. So there's far less openings for anything to get into the leaves, if you see what I mean. And also a fair few orchids have the majority of their stomata on the underside of the leaves, which makes foliar feeding quite difficult because you tend to spray the top of the plant, don't you? Anyway, it's not something I intend to do. It's not even something I'm going to look into. All I was interested in really was to just go over that point of, do orchids get their nutrients from the humidity in the air around them? And I think it's reasonably safe to say the simple answer is no, they don't. They get their nutrients the way I've always understood it. The rain comes down and washes stuff down over the roots and over the leaves, don't forget. You know, if the rain's coming down through the trees and everything, then runoff, wash off, whatever you want to call it, is hitting the whole plant, you know, so it is going on the leaves. And it is potentially capable of feeding in that manner, as well as through the roots, which is the traditional route for epiphytes. But yeah, I mean, some absorption through the leaves could quite possibly take place, but from rain, from water, and water with content, not from humidity. So yeah, we'll dispel that theory, I think. No, I think this may end up heading down to... It's flying all over the place. It can't settle, but it has dropped below 6.3 now. So, I mean, I'm not fussed how low that's going to go. I don't believe it's going to go too much lower than that. But I do find it a trifle worrying that this rainwater, which is fresh, as I said, stored in clean glass containers, it's touched nothing. It's not run off a roof or anything like that. It's not hit any leaves or anything like that. It's come straight out the sky. And it's been doing it all morning since I got up. And it's now 3 o'clock and it's still doing it. So we've had quite a bit of rain today. Well, you know, I mean, that's a reasonably straight-sided container. There's a centimetre in there. Yeah, it's a fair bit. I expect there'll be some floods in some places. Anyway, as I said, I've got no intention of using rainwater, but a lot of people don't check pH, and most of us would accept that when we add our feed to our water, it drops the pH a degree or two, depending on what sort of feed is going in. I mean, I know mine that you know, 100 parts per million of my MSU fertiliser will drop my RO water by, you know, about 0.2, maybe 0.3. So if I take my feed up to 200 parts per million, it's going to drop my pH down well below 6.5, heading down to sort of 6.1, 6.2, yeah, which I'm okay with. Yeah, I mean, that's not too low, but What if I was using this rainwater? Think that through. If I was using this rainwater that had a start point of say 6.3 and I put 200 parts per million in, where would my pH be? Logically, well below where I would be prepared to accept it. So yeah, a lot of people think that rainwater is totally pure and has a neutral pH. Well, this rainwater hasn't. That doesn't mean to say tomorrow's rainwater, which could be different, could have come from, I don't know, different places, come down through different air, I don't know. Whatever. But rainwater is variable. It is not. It isn't a constant. So that's what these things are for checking before you chuck it on your orchids. And the one thing I'll re-emphasize is that obviously in the wild, I personally do not believe that orchids get much food at all. And it's what they get is a bit hit and miss as well. You know, it's as simple as that. I mean, it still amazes me that, you know, we concentrate on all of the elements in the fertilizers required for, you know, for good growth and health and everything like that. And it totally amazes me that those would be readily available in the runoff from the rainwater on a plant that's attached to the trunk of a tree. Do they really get all of those elements all of the time? Every time it rains? I wonder. Anyway, I'm not going to stand out in the jungle in the pouring rain and find out, that's for sure. That's just a little game there with, you know, this is rainwater, those are my 2 meters, those are the results I got. That wouldn't stop me using that rainwater, but I've got no means of collecting it clean. Yeah, because as soon as you start adding in roofs and gutters and barrels and things like that, it's going to get dirty. And once it gets dirty, it's, in my view, it's contaminated effectively. So it would need some sort of sterilisation before it actually got near the orchids. So there we go, bit of fun. And you've got, there's elements of what I've said in this video. You'd have to form your own opinions because a lot of that's not science. I mean, that is rainwater I've just collected, and those are the actual readings from my meters. I know the TDS meter is pretty accurate, always has been. But pH meters, you know, they're a bit hit and miss, but I would say within 1 or 2 points. So if it says 6.5, it's between 6.3 and 6.7. It's in there somewhere. So when this, you know, is giving a reading of 6.3, it could be a bit lower than that, it could be a bit higher, but it's not miles off, if you see what I mean. And then, like I say, I think enough people established in that other video that water vapour, as in, because some people said, like, you know, the word's gone. Humidifiers, I'll get there in it. Whoa, that went, didn't it? Their humidifiers, yeah, can, you know, if they use tap water in their humidifiers, it actually leaves a film on the leaves, which implies that, you know, it actually does contain stuff. Yeah, don't forget that's droplets. The humidifier puts out droplets of water. It doesn't vaporize it. Whereas humidity, evaporating water, is basically transforming what was a liquid into a form of gas, where those water molecules are so far apart they can no longer be called a liquid. And our basic fertilizer elements, the molecules are too heavy to be transported in that way, so they are left behind in the main. I bet there's a few exceptions to that, but I don't want to know, quite honestly. I'm quite happy carrying on the way I am. I use my feed in the manner I believe epiphytes are designed to work, i.e. applied at the roots and allowed to be used, you know, given a reasonable atmosphere and everything that goes with it. So none of this lately is going to change anything. So yeah, so be it.